Hello everybody, it's Abdul-Karim again with the second lesson of learning JavaScript. So a recap of lesson 1, we learned the fundamentals of making commands for the computer, which is the semicolon, the parentheses which contains the parameters, and the command. For lesson 2, we're going to learn some commands that we can call in order to create images in our canvas, as I like to call it. So as you see here, I have all this code which somehow produced this face saying, where am I? Well, it's actually a lot simpler. Ellipse, as is seen here, can be used to draw a circle. So ellipse equals circle. Now, it may not seem like it, but ellipse can also mean an oval, because that's typically what it'll produce. But an oval can be turned into a circle, and a circle can be turned into an oval. The next thing we have is rect, which rect is used to create squares, or basically squares. And it would take me too long to go through all of the list of commands. So I'm going to show you them up right here. Alright, so you have our first command, which is rect. Parentheses, remember you always have to have your parentheses and semicolon. How I typically do it is just to get a rough draft, I put 50, 50, 50, 50. And as you can see here, I called my command rect, I gave the command its information, and then I told it to do it. So I told it to run it. And it gave me, as you can see, the first point here, the x coordinate of the first point, and the y coordinate of the second point. And from there, it was able to triangulate and create the other remaining points. So that's rect. Then to create circles, you have ellipse, parentheses, parentheses, 50, 50, 50, and 50. And as you can see, they overlap, which brings to mind, okay, so if they overlap, that means that there are a lot more things you can do with these two commands, that you can change them. Alright, so let's say you want to add color to any of these images. Well, you would insert this, fill, parentheses, and only because we're in Khan Academy's library database does it automatically put it in there, because it assumes that you're going to create a color. But if you're not doing that, how you would write it is fill parentheses, and then another parentheses, and the semicolon. Now, you probably remember your primary colors. So that's basically how the JavaScript organizes your colors. So let's say I put 50, 50, 50. It turns it completely black. Now you can mess around with it. There's a lot of different combinations, such as, let's say, 127, 165, and 335. That'll get you a bluish color. That really goes into what you're trying to do. And then another thing you can do is, you might be wondering, why are these overlapping? Well, the reason why is because you have to look at the order of when they were called. So as you can see, 1, 2, 3, and 4, those are a list of commands, as there's nothing here before. So the first command that was called in this code was fill, which gives us our color. So basically it said, we told basically our computer that everything after fill is going to be blue. And as you can see, the two other commands that I called after fill, rect and ellipse, are blue. Now, what's going on is, how the computer calls commands is actually backwards. So instead of going up and down, it goes down to up. Now this doesn't really work for fill, because basically, since fill is a color, it calls everything under it that color until you change it. Or if you put a no fill in there, which basically takes away the color. So you see I have fill right there. So if I write no fill, parentheses, wait a minute, parentheses, it'll take away that color, and you see it's not overlapping. And that's another thing what you have to learn about JavaScript is that JavaScript typically uses camel case. Camel case is basically where, well, this isn't written in camel case format, but camel case is basically where you take whatever you're writing, and in order for it to be in proper JavaScript format, the first letter of whatever command you're writing is a lowercase, so camel. So you have two syllables here, camel, and then that's your first syllable, and then your second syllable is case. So on the second syllable, you're going to write a capital C. Now this can also apply for words. So if you have, for an example, you're trying to create a variable draw Winston, in this case, which Khan Academy loves talking about. You would say var draw and then a capital W Winston. That's proper camel case format for JavaScript, and not just JavaScript, but also other coding languages as well. So if we take away the no fill command, as you can see, everything from here is blue. So besides for the fill and stroke and no stroke, which we're going to be getting into in a minute, fill is going to cover everything from under until I call another command such as fill and change it to a different color, or no fill, as you saw, which made it no color. But the difference with commands is that the reason why the circle overlaps the square is because of what order the commands are called in. So with these type of commands, they call them in up, from down to up. So for fill, for an example, it's going to call it in up to down. But for like rect and ellipse and triangles and whatnot, it's going to call it down to up. So the reason why the circle overlaps the square is because since the circle is the most recent, since ellipse is the most recent piece of code that I put in there, it's going to come over this square. And there is another command that one can use to actually get that to not happen. So as you can see from outside of the circle, you see this black line. Now that's actually the stroke. So if you want to make them overlap, all you would do is no, then camel case STROKE parentheses, and you see they're not overlapping anymore. They completely merged with each other. And this works really good if you're into like drawing clouds and you don't want your clouds to be directly intersecting the strokes directly intersecting each other. This is really helpful as well. So that's another command that we learned, no stroke, which basically takes away the stroke of whatever the command is that you're calling. Now this doesn't apply for color because the color is going to stay. Now, another command that's really helpful is text. Now, before we get into actually creating text, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create the size of the text. Because in writing text, it only allows you to put whatever you're trying to write, and it also allows you to put like where it is, your x and y coordinates of it. But it doesn't tell you how big it is. So let's say you want to type in JavaScript. So what you would do is you would do text parenthesis, and then semicolon. Now the first parameter or point that you're going to put is whatever the word is that you're writing. So what you would do is you would do a quotation mark, then write JavaScript. I put it in camel case simply because I wanted to do that. And then another quotation mark. So that's basically said, okay, computer, this is what I want you to say, and that's why it's in green. Now the next 2 points that you're putting in is going to be your x and y coordinates. So let's say you want this to be at 50x and 50y. Alright, well, as you can see, the word is hidden, but there you go. And as you can see, that rule I was telling you about fill also applies to this. That fill is for everything below. Every single piece of code that is typed in animation-wise, is going to come up as blue because my fill color is blue. So the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to press enter here, and you want your size. As you can see, it automatically made it as a really small font, and for those people out there who need glasses or can't really see that well, they're going to want that to be bigger. So how you will resolve that is you will write text size parenthesis this semicolon, which, like again, calls your command. So now this is where it gets easy, because it ranges up to infinity, really, how big you want your text to be. But we're just going to be practical right now, and let's put it at like 50. Alright, so now you can see your text, and that really helps. So those are some of the commands that you can use to make whatever your animations are easier to call up. You have fill, then if you want to take away that, you have no fill, parenthesis, semicolon, which takes away the color, and as you can see, the background is white, and so now the color is white as well, so that doesn't really work. And then you have stroke, and then another thing that really works with fill and stroke is, let's say you want your rectangle to be blue, but then you want the stroke of your rectangle to not necessarily be blue as well. So, well, you wouldn't actually logically be able to do that, but we're going to get into that into the later lessons. So that's what we've learned today. You've learned how to call two commands, ellipse and rect, and then you've learned how to really manipulate these commands based upon some outward commands that you can call. So basically, now instead of telling your dog to roll over, you told him where you want him to roll over or how you want him to roll over. So your dog is learning new tricks. It's getting better. And thank you.